A silent figure lies half buried in snow. Her face is pale, lips blue, eyes half open, as if she's still watching the climbers who pass her. They whisper her name, Francys. She was found alive once, barely breathing near the top of the world, too weak to move, too high to save. The people who reached her couldn't help, not without dying beside her. So they clipped her to the rope, said their goodbyes, and descended in silence. By morning, she was gone. On Mount Everest, triumph and tragedy share the same ridge. The mountain doesn't rage or warn. It simply keeps what it takes. And among its frozen slopes lie the stories of 4 women who reached the top and never came back. In 1979, a German climber named Hannelore Schmatz became the first woman to die on Everest's upper slopes. She and her husband, Gerhard, were part of an expedition that reached the summit from the south side in 1979. The climb had gone smoothly. The descent did not. Exhausted and dehydrated, Hannelore stopped to rest just below the South Col, around 27,000 feet. Her Sherpa guides urged her to keep moving, but she sat down, saying she only needed a moment. Moments later, she was gone. Her body froze upright, still wearing her red parka, backpack in place, hair moving in the wind. For years afterward, climbers could see her sitting beside the trail, eyes open, facing the route down. At a distance, she looked alive. Some even mistook her for someone waiting for help. Attempts to recover her body ended in further tragedy. A Nepalese police officer sent to retrieve her fell to his death when high winds swept his rope line. After that, officials stopped trying. The mountain kept her where she was. Hannelore's death taught a lesson every climber now knows. The summit is only halfway. Most die on the way down. When the air runs out, strength fades, and judgment slips away. 17 years later, there was the 1996 Everest disaster. That spring, 8 climbers were lost in a single storm. Among them was Yasuko Namba of Japan, a 47-year-old member of Rob Hall's expedition. Yasuko had already conquered 6 of the 7 summits and became, at the time, the oldest woman to reach Everest's peak. She stood at the top in triumph, but the weather turned without warning. Descending in hurricane-force winds, she and others became trapped near Camp 4. Through the night, temperatures fell below -40 degrees. Visibility dropped to 0. Yasuko was found barely conscious, covered in ice, only a few hundred feet from her tent. Rescuers tried to reach her, but the storm forced them to retreat. By morning, she was gone. Her body was later returned to Japan, but her story stayed on the mountain. It became part of one of the deadliest episodes in climbing history, told in John Krakauer's Into Thin Air and the film Everest. Yasuko's fate proved that even experience can't guarantee survival when the mountain decides otherwise. Just 2 years later, in May of 1998, American climber Francys Arsentiev became the first woman from the United States to reach Everest's summit without bottled oxygen. She stood at the highest point on Earth beside her husband Sergei, taking photographs under a clear blue sky. It was a perfect day. But on the descent, darkness fell faster than expected. Without oxygen, her pace slowed. Confused and exhausted, Francys and Sergei became separated in the night. She collapsed near the ridge between the summit and Camp 4, still alive, but unable to move. 2 days later, climbers Ian Woodall and Kathy O'Dowd from a South African team found her. Her skin was frostbitten, her voice faint. She asked them, "Please, don't leave me." They tried for nearly an hour, but at that altitude, each step drained their own strength. If they stayed, they would die too. They made the impossible decision to turn back. Sergei was found days later, dead in a fall while trying to reach her. Francis remained where she fell, her body frozen in place for almost a decade. In 2007, climbers finally returned to lower her from sight and bury her beneath the snow. She became known as the Sleeping Beauty of Everest, a name as tragic as her story. Her death reminded climbers that ambition alone isn't enough. On Everest, time, weather, and oxygen decide who lives. By 2012, Everest had become a business. Guiding companies offered the chance to stand on top of the world for a price. That spring, more than 200 climbers attempted the summit in a single weekend. Among them was Shriya Shah-Klorfine, a Canadian woman born in Nepal who dreamed of carrying her nation's flag to the top. She wasn't a professional mountaineer. She had trained, but not at the scale Everest demands. And the team she joined was one of the cheapest commercial operators on the mountain. On May 19th, she reached the summit, smiling for photos beneath the Canadian flag. But the celebration came too late in the day. Crowds on the descent caused long delays in the death zone. Shriya had already spent more than 20 hours above 26,000 feet. Her oxygen was nearly gone. Guides and other climbers tried to help, but many were struggling themselves. Just 800 feet above Camp 4, Shriya collapsed. She never stood up again. Her body was found the next morning and later recovered at great risk. For years, her death symbolized a new kind of Everest tragedy, not from storms or isolation, but from overcrowding and misplaced trust. She wasn't reckless. She was hopeful. But on Everest, hope is never enough. 7 years later, the same pattern returned, this time in an even deadlier season. In May of 2019, photos showed a single rope line stretching along the summit ridge, packed shoulder to shoulder with climbers. Among them was Priya Rani Singh, a 49-year-old woman from India. She had trained for years and dreamed of proving that determination could take her anywhere. But that day, the line barely moved. Hundreds waited for hours above 26,000 feet while their oxygen drained away. Priya reached the top, then collapsed on the way down, still clipped to the rope. Rescuers tried to revive her, but she was already gone. She was one of 11 climbers lost that season, a year remembered for its traffic jams and preventable deaths. Her story showed how Everest's modern dangers aren't just storms or avalanches anymore. They're human bottlenecks and fragile logistics. Even with technology, forecasts, and better gear, one truth remains. You can't queue for the summit of a mountain that kills in minutes. 5 women, 5 different decades, different nations, different motives, the same mountain. Hannelore showed how quickly exhaustion turns fatal. Yasuko showed that storms don't discriminate. Francis proved that even success can be deadly. Shriya exposed how commercialization replaced caution with crowds. And Priya showed that even now, Everest hasn't learned. Each story carries a lesson, but together they reveal something deeper. Everest doesn't evolve, the climbers do. New gear, new guides, new motives, yet the outcome repeats. At 29,000 feet, ambition meets physics. The air is too thin, the margin too small, the distance between victory and death too short. Every person who climbs above the South Col enters the same unwritten contract, and not all of them return to tell the story. They came from different corners of the world, chasing the same dream. Some for records, some for meaning, some simply for the view. but the mountain kept them all. Their bodies became part of its landscape, silent markers of how close courage and catastrophe can stand. Everest doesn't care about fame or flags or firsts. It only waits. And when it decides, it doesn't give back what it takes. If you want more stories of mountains and the people who challenge them, subscribe, like, and ring the bell.